Good morning, guys. Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven, and Diana this time. I fed her this morning. She ate a little bit, not a lot, out of her can of food that she seems to prefer. And she doesn't eat enough because it's cold. Yeah, she doesn't eat a lot. I put one of the cat's treats on top, and she gobbles that treat up. But left the food today. It's cold. I'll leave it out by my apartment door so she can finish it. And there's my little boyfriend. He's behaving really well today. He's actually, there you go, that's a good sign. When he rubs up against me or lets me pet him, that means I have pretty good odds of getting him in the apartment later on. We've been out, for about an hour, and it's about 40, 45 degrees, so it's about time to go in. I'm cold. No. Hey guys. Hi. There's Buddy. Hi. It's, so clearly I got Buddy back in the apartment, right? Buddy? No. So I got him in the apartment. And for some reason he wants to hang out with me up here. He never does. So we got Buddy back in the apartment. It was relatively painless today, which is really good because he's been a jerk the past couple of days. But, oh, Buddy, get your butt out of the camera. All right. I love him. So he came into the apartment fairly easily today. Not a lot of fighting, which is great. So after he, don't do that. After he got into the apartment, I gave them all their snacks for lunch. And then we all took naps. I didn't wake up until 5 o'clock this afternoon. I slept all day long. All I did was play with the cats and sleep. It was glorious. It was glorious. But that left nothing for Vlogmas, right? And so I had to think, what am I going to show you guys? What am I going to talk to you guys about? And I remembered an email that Anna Marie had sent me a few days ago, and I thought, this is perfect. So it's also, the things she talked about, or the questions she asked, are things I have not touched on, I don't think, in all of my videos. So this is like perfect timing. So thank you, Anna Marie. You're saving Vlogmas today. So she sent me this email, and regarding health risks of being a flight attendant, right? All right, so let's talk about the issues or the topics that Anna Marie has listed here in this email regarding health risks of being a flight attendant. First off, illnesses. Now, my first thought would be the common cold, really. We're surrounded by people in a very close proximity. I don't know who else is exposed to more germs, flight attendants or preschool teachers. I don't know. But we're always surrounded by sick passengers. They come on board coughing up lungs, blowing their noses, handing us their sick rags, and you can a lot of us wear gloves to help protect from that, but there's a lot of saliva on cups. There's all sorts of vectors for illness on an aircraft. And the other source is sometimes when your peer, your coworker, is sick. You're sitting up in front and your chaser next to you is visibly ill. She's sick, and you're like, you're getting all judgy. How dare you come to work sick, putting me at risk? But when I get sick, the odds are I'm probably going to end up having to fly sick myself. Why is that? Because, and I think this is pretty universal when it comes to airlines, when we call out sick, we get points. Now, it depends on how long you've been around. If you're still on probation, you get more points than not. But we get points. We're not supposed to be penalized for being sick, but these points kind of feel like it's being penalized. If we get enough points, we can be reprimanded. We can face some sort of disciplinary action. If we get really that many points, we can be terminated. If you're sick that often or have a chronic illness, excuse me, my allergies to my cats are really bad today. You can go through FMLA, things like that. So you have some sort of recourse for that. But just in general illness. We're sick fairly often, especially earlier in your career. And there's very little you can do to escape it. We can't wear masks or anything. But so, yeah, we're fairly often sick. I take a multivitamin every day. If I hear someone is sick or coughing or blah, 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 I do tend to kind of avoid that area unless I have to. I will literally walk through that part of the aircraft kind of holding my breath. Yeah, so people get sick all the time. Injuries. Now, my first thought for injuries really stems from turbulence. There's all sorts of ways you can get hurt as a flight attendant, but my first thought is turbulence. I have not sustained any injuries because of turbulence, because I am very, very quick to get to my jump seat the minute that we have any turbulence. If we experience turbulence, I'm not doing service. I'm not getting up to tell you to put your seatbelt on. We're going to do an announcement over the PA system, but I'm getting in my seat because I've heard horror stories of my coworkers, immediate friends who have been injured because of turbulence. The first comes to mind is a young lady that she shattered her ankle, like in multiple places, multiple bones. She had to have all sorts of rods and screws and all sorts of stuff put in her leg. Excuse me. I think she's still out of work. That was months and months and months ago. One of my coworkers, when we first started, there was turbulence. He was trying to help someone and stop them from falling. He fell and broke his elbow. Broke his freaking elbow trying to help somebody out. Another coworker that comes to mind during some clear air turbulence, she was literally thrown on the ceiling, thrown at the ceiling, injuring her neck, injuring her shoulder. And I want to say this has happened a couple times to her because she's been flying for a very long time. But there are injuries that are sustained during turbulence. So our airline, my airline, thankfully, when the seatbelt sign is turned on and there's not a lot of turbulence, or one of my coworkers is supposed to go down the aisle and do a compliance check to make sure that everyone's seatbelt is fastened. If we are experiencing turbulence that could be potentially dangerous, I don't have to do that walk, which is great, because I'll tell you, that plane does a little bit too much of this. I am sitting my butt down in my jump seat and I am buckling up. I am not going to put myself at risk of a life-changing injury because of some turbulence. Other sources of injury could be something as benign as stepping out of an airplane shuttle. You sometimes have to be a billy goat to get out of a shuttle to collect your bags. And a lot of our flight attendants wear heels. So I've seen coworkers twist their ankle when getting out of a hotel shuttle or an airport shuttle. So that can be a challenge. Another source of injury could potentially be passengers' baggage. There's an age-old saying, if you pack it, you stack it. Flight attendants aren't required to lift passengers' luggage. They're not required to help with your luggage. If someone's got a super heavy bag and they can't lift it, now I might do it because I'm 6'2", almost 6'2". I'm fairly strong. It would be a real challenge to challenge me physically to put a bag up over my head. But if I have a coworker who's 5'1", she weighs 116 pounds, and you're throwing a $50 suitcase at her up over her head, and that happens again and again and again, day after day after day, there are injuries that can happen to your shoulders, back, all sorts of things. So flight attendants aren't required to lift bags. They can. I think it's at their own risk, honestly. So that is a potential risk for injury as well. What else? Scalds, burns. I used to watch a flight attendant who has a YouTube channel. She works for a mainline airline, and they have ovens on their aircraft because they do real service. We do snacks. And I think one of her instructors gifted her, upon graduation, a pair of oven mitts because they burn themselves on their arms putting stuff in and out of hot ovens. So there's all sorts of ways a flight attendant can be injured. Thankfully, I have avoided being injured so far. I can't think of a time I've been injured. But yeah, they happen. Injuries do happen. Hearing loss. I was about to say, not really any big risk for hearing loss because, my first thought it was about the engines that we are so close to. But you pretty much stop hearing the engines. It's not because you can't hear them. It's just that you eventually sort of tone them out. But one of the things at the bottom of Anne Marie's list here was spending time in a pressurized space. Now, hearing loss can be, hearing loss can be a potential issue if you fly with a sinus infection or plugged up ears. There is something called a eustachian tube, I believe, that goes from the inside of the throat to the ear to equalize the pressure. If that's blocked and you're descending, for the most part, it happens upon descent, I think. It is incredibly painful. You can always hear little kids, little babies, when they're experiencing this pain because they squeal with this just inhuman sound because they are in extraordinary pain that comes from nowhere and it's right inside their head. But that pressure could potentially cause your eardrum to rupture. So if you're a flight attendant, you already know about this. If you're just a regular old passenger and you don't know this and you have an ear infection or something, do not fly. Do not fly. It's not worth it. Change your plans because it is not worth it. Talk to your doctor, whatever. Sudafed, whatever you have to do. You have to open up those ears. I, so far, have not had a challenge with that pain in my ear, that pressure, since I was probably 10. It used to happen as a child all the time. But as an adult, it really doesn't affect me so much. When the pressure changes, I can kind of like half yawn and wiggle my jaw a little bit, and it seems to pop my ears. So it's not a problem. But hearing loss could be a challenge if you're flying with a sinus infection. If you are tempted to fly with a sinus infection because you have points and you don't want to get more points, but you have a sinus infection, I would take the points and face the music because having your eardrums burst, yeah, not good. That's life-changing, right? Air quality. Well, in my airline, we fly all Airbus. And Airbus, I think in the good old days, used to have a fair number of problems with air quality. But these days, it seems like they've resolved the issue, so I'm very, very happy about that. I have only experienced, I was told by another coworker that we experienced an air quality event. I didn't even notice it. I didn't smell what you're supposed to smell. There's particular smells that are very unusual that are tied to sometimes an air quality event. So when that happens, it usually means something that should not be into the air, sort of spread into the air, into the aircraft, happens. If that happens, there's an air quality event. Again, I have not had much experience with that, so I don't know what to tell you about it. Every smell in an aircraft does not mean something's really wrong. If an aircraft flies too close over a dump, you'll smell the garbage. If it flies near a forest fire, you're going to smell smoke. So if you start smelling smoke and there's a forest fire nearby, don't freak out too much because that's on the ground, not in the air. So the air quality can be affected by all sorts of stuff. It's not unhealthy, it's just unpleasant. But, most of the time when I am not flying lead, the jump seat that I choose to sit in is typically right next to the lavatory, which is not going to be toxic, but it can be really thoroughly unpleasant. I hear pretty much everything, not to make you paranoid when you get out of an aircraft and you have to do your business, but the smells that can come out of the lavatory are sometimes really bad. When you throw something into the garbage, our trash cart, and you push that cart back into its place, sometimes the air can kind of puff up, and boy, that can be something else. So you learn to hold your breath when you're pushing the cart in. So air quality used to be more of an issue than it is now, and it's typically something that's external from the aircraft, and it's usually not something to worry about. So if you're a passenger and you smell something strange, don't freak out. The one time I was sure that we were having what we would call an air quality event, the one time I was sure that we were going to have a big, big, big problem, it turned out that it was someone sitting in one of our rows painting her nails, and it was the smell of nail polish that was freaking everybody out. So yeah, so don't paint your nails on an aircraft. It's technically hazmat, I think. Sleep disruption. Well, there's lots to say about that. We don't get to sleep very well usually. It's taken me almost 3 years. I'll be here 3 years on March 1st. It's taken me this long to really figure out how to get to sleep and to sleep well without being groggy in the morning. And I have my tricks about how to fall asleep. But there are times that, for example, we can have our minimum rest would be 10 hours of a layover. That's our minimum rest. Now, 10 hours from landing, that door pops open, tick-tock, my rest period starts. We have to get to the shuttle, to the airport, get our key, get situated, go to sleep, wake up, get back on a shuttle, and get to the airport and check in within 10 hours. And that's not uncommon. And that can be reduced to 9 and even 8 in very particular circumstances. Now then the next day, of course, you have a 12-hour duty day, 4 legs, and you're struggling to stay awake. It's just awful. And so it's hard to sleep on cue. And then there are times that for example, for me, my trips start out with a red eye typically. I get where I'm going, say 5 or 6 in the morning. I give myself an hour or hour and a half, 2 hours to nap before I want to go out and explore the city. So that's my choice, to either sleep or explore a city, and then come back and try and sleep for the next day. So sleep deprivation is a real thing. I think, I didn't get back from a trip yesterday. I got back the day before yesterday, and I slept fine last night. But my body still clearly needed to sleep because I slept the whole day today. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful. But sleep disruption's a real problem. Eventually you figure it out, but it can be misery the first year or two. Is the job hard on the body? Yeah, I would say it is. We are, I want to say, for me, it's a little easier, I think, mostly because I'm a big guy and fairly strong. So the day-to-day managing of carts, heavy carts, luggage, mine and passenger luggage, the physicality of up and down really doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. But you get the combination of sleep deprivation, being sick all the time, maybe twisting that ankle, all sorts of little things add up to just a general sense of unease or dis-ease that just sort of can make you feel tired and a little cranky. So while I haven't had any real challenges to my body, the grinding day-to-day task of being a flight attendant can be kind of hard in the body. And that's with someone who's fairly strong and fairly healthy. I can't imagine what it's like to be a little flight attendant. We have, with my airline, I think we have a height minimum of 5'1". I think you have to be 5'1". And so we have some delicate, smaller people flying, and they have to manage a 300-pound cart sometimes and put their own luggage, which might weigh 40, 45 pounds, in the overhead bin. So the grinding physical nature of being a flight attendant can eventually be harder on their body, I think. Some people complain about being on their feet a lot, and that is hard on their body. I come from retail where I was spending 10 hours a day in leather-soled shoes standing on marble all day. So I can't complain about my feet as a flight attendant, because also as a guy, I don't have to wear heels. It might be fun, but so it's not so hard on my feet as retail was. Retail was harder on my body than being a flight attendant. Working at Neiman Marcus as a makeup artist was harder on my body than being a flight attendant. the truth. And spending time in a pressurized space, is that a risk for me? Outside of what I talked about earlier with hearing, being if you have a plugged ear or a sinus infection, working in a pressurized environment could be potentially dangerous. Otherwise, I don't see it being a real problem as a risk, as a health risk, because it's kind of like we're pressurized at, about 8,000 feet. So it's kind of like being in Denver, all the time, and then coming up and down the mountain. So I don't think that the pressure is a real big health risk for me. Health risk. Social risk, that's another thing. Because if you're at all gassy, if you get like gas, if you tend to bloat up with gas, boy, it could be a real challenge to your neighbor. Honestly, because if you get a bag of chips at ground level, and you look at that bag as we change different phases of flight, that bag is going to puff up, real puffed up like a balloon. Then it's going to deflate again. The pressure expanding, decreasing, depending on the pressure. That kind of happens to your body a little bit too. So if you're a little gassy, that could be a little bit of a challenge. People don't talk about it a lot because who wants to talk about farting in an aircraft? Yeah, a solution could be if you have to let one go. Go into the lavatory and sit down, do your thing, flush, and I'll tell you, it all goes away. It's nice. But that's the only challenge I have with being in a pressurized space, is like your tummy sometimes is a little full. And that's it. Those are the topics that Anna Marie wrote down, and I think they were pretty complete. And so I just wanted to share some thoughts on each of those things, as I don't really hear a lot about that, being injured as a flight attendant, or the health risks, I should say. So there you go. That's that. This video is already longer than I expected, which I say all the time. I'll do a last call for my giveaway for my eBags Crew Cooler 2. I'm giving one away. So all you have to do is do something nice for somebody else who is maybe less fortunate than you are. Come to one of my videos in December. Leave a comment as to what you did, maybe potentially what you got out of it, how it made you feel, and you'll be entered into the giveaway. You don't have to subscribe to my channel, which is fine. An example, and I will be sharing a video about this in January. I just signed up to volunteer for a day. If I like it, I'll volunteer more than one day at an organization called Clean the World. So if you're in Las Vegas or in Orlando, or for some reason you're watching me from Hong Kong, those are 3 locations where they recycle used soaps, body lotions, hair, shampoo, conditioner, things like that. So the Hilton is a big group that does this. The Caesars organization contributes a lot. So used soaps, those bars of soaps you use in the hotel once or twice, those are collected by housekeeping. That's all sent to these organizations, warehouses or whatever, in Las Vegas, Orlando, and Hong Kong. And they are recycled. Check out their website. It's called Clean the World. So I think it's on the 3rd of January. I'll be going there for a few hours to try it out. And if I like it, I'll do it again, because I don't volunteer as much as I like to. And so if I were not me, I would write about, once I have done it, go and talk about what I did at Clean the World, and I would be entered into the running to win an eBags Crew Cooler 2. That's a great example of what you could be doing too. All right, I'll let you go. I'm going to go check out my dinner because I'm starving. I will talk to you later. Have a good night. Fly safe.